I'm about to give you the most honest take on Jon Anik, so here it goes. In the recent times, Jon Anik was asked about his opinion on Dricus and the Strickland fight, and who in his opinion thought that would have won that fight, which obviously he said was Dricus. I agree with him on that for several reasons, but this isn't a technical breakdown, so to say. So let's really focus in on what is the problem here with the MMA space and Jon Anik. Jon Anik said that he would rather go and work for football, the NFL, because of the toxicity that exists amongst MMA fans. Now, is he correct? In some ways he is. But when you want to compare that to the NFL and their particular fan base, you got to understand that I think there's a good argument to say they have a bit of a rowdy crowd. Way more than the mixed martial arts crowd. And, well, I don't have data or metric proof to present to you whether that's true or not, in terms of who is more toxic, the NFL crowd or the MMA, UFC, boxing crowd. Well, okay, maybe I think the MMA crowd is a crowd in and of itself, but in that aspect that we're analyzing, in terms of Jon Anik's recent comments, I think that when it comes to Strickland and certain fighters that certain guys support, it's fair to say that there is a certain level of toxic attitude that exists within that particular culture of MMA. And here's the reason why. Why yes and why no? I'm going to give you the pros and cons as to whether the MMA community is toxic. The reality is, the MMA community, if you train and you actually go to the gym and train with some of the best guys in the world, or just, anybody that's coming up training to be an MMA fighter, or just a group of people that are trying to learn self-defense together, one thing that you're going to learn very quickly is humility. Because at any given time, even though you could be the best guy in the world, at any time, anybody at any particular skill level can give you a hard time depending on how you feel that day. That is the humility that you learn in a combat sports gym. Now also, if you take into consideration, let's say if you are the worst guy in the gym, the best guy in the gym is always going to treat you with a certain amount of respect to where eventually you're going to get better. Okay, so this is the positive aspect of MMA culture or the MMA community. And sometimes some of those people can bleed online with using their same positive attitude and positive mentality in, let's say, constructive criticism. Hey, I thought that maybe you should have kept your hands up this way. Hey, maybe I thought that when you are in a half guard position, maybe you should have waited to transition at this time, or held wrist control during this position, or this and that. These people are the gems of the MMA community, and in particular, the MMA chats, the people that you see on MMA channels that interact with each other during a live stream, or just interact with each other in a video where they commented on, and then they go back and forth like they do in any social media page. Okay, so that's the other aspect of the MMA culture. However, you have to understand that MMA is becoming big, and as bigger and a lot more prominent that MMA becomes, one thing you got to remember is that it is going to attract more people. And when it attracts more people, well, you're not really going to get the most smartest bunch of those that participate in the activities of, let's say, the online interaction. You're not. Because these people come from the bottom pole, and not only that, come up with the lowest common denominator way of thinking in their daily lives. This is the reality of many people that are quote-unquote MMA fans. The rest of us, either train or appreciate the sport on the side. That's it. That's the reality of the two MMA fan bases. I'll say it again. In the MMA fan bases, you either train or you're either just somebody that sits in the sideline. And within those two dynamics, there are those that are going to be kind about it, and then there are those that are not going to be kind about it. For example, the ones that do train, if they are the baddest guy in the gym or one of the best fighters in the world, guess what? They can choose to be a D-head or they can choose to be a nice guy. And if you are the worst guy in the gym, guess what? You can choose to quit in this negativity that you have in your mind that, man, I'm just not strong enough, or I'm never getting better, or I'm never learning techniques. Or you could be the guy that is inspired by the best guy in the gym and uplift yourself to try to follow their example so that you can get better. And how about the ones that are just the ones sitting on the sideline, that don't train at all, that don't compete? What about those fans? Which, by the way, I would argue makes up 80% of the MMA fan base. Now, again, I don't have a metric or data on that. That's literally a guesstimate that I'm giving you. Okay, I don't know if that's the reality, but let's just say that for MMA to be popular and for MMA to be even more popular, you need people in the millions, 100 millions. And within that data size of sample of population that you get in that data, you're going to get a lot of people that are idiots. And that's just the reality of the situation. So, what about those idiots? That is the guys that Jon Anik is concerned about. And you want to talk about the NFL, the toxic fan bases that they have with, let's say you see a Chiefs fan getting into a fight with a Vikings fan. You've seen videos of these, countless. You've seen a Cowboy supporter get punched by some random Raider supporter. And the variations of the teams involved in the league can go back and forth. And the history of fans going at it. Again, like the soccer hooliganism that they have going on in the UK. Neither here or there, but there's some similarities involved in that. So bottom line, who has the more toxic fan base? The NFL or the UFC? Because from what I heard in the rumor mill was that Jon Anik was offered a deal with ESPN to do football because he is already in the UFC MMA space. He's got a great voice. He's got an announcer's voice, which really helps. A lot of people have told me I have an announcer's voice to a certain degree. But Jon Anik is the one in the game in the mainstream side of things. And he is now being offered an NFL gig, which means he would either have to compromise with the UFC in time slots or totally abandon one, quit the UFC, and go full-time with the NFL. And he may have a rude awakening when he gets there. Because guess what? I just think that the fan base in the NFL is a little less forgiving. Well, let me explain why. In the beginning of this content, I mentioned to you guys about people that train and people that don't train, the two types of MMA fans. When it comes to the NFL, okay, maybe you go out and you play a pickup game once in a while. The reality is they don't. A lot of people that are sports fans are sideline people. They don't train. A lot of them don't even work out, let alone do squats or anything remotely related to what an NFL player does and what it gets for you when you watch these types of events. Because guess what? When I watch MMA And when I saw the Dustin Poirier and the Conor McGregor fight, I saw the importance of leg checks, checking leg kicks. And on top of that, being able to throw calf kicks that can later be invested in the later rounds to really debilitate your opponent, especially the opponents that have wheels and a great footwork, such as Conor McGregor. So you see, these are the types of things that I can learn watching mixed martial arts. When it comes to the NFL, maybe you can learn a thing or two about learning how to run fast, but be honest with yourselves. How many NFL fans actually go out and sprint? Maybe the ones that have played high school football, maybe the ones that have played college football, and they want to continue that training structure and continue it way beyond their athletic career. I've seen guys like that. I've seen college basketball players or former college basketball players, as they got older, continue training in the way that they would in their Division I training rooms for those basketball games that they were getting ready for in the NCAA. Right? They loved that structure. They continued it. But again, those basketball fans and those football fans are very far few and in between. Whereas when an MMA crowd, I urge you guys to take a look at the MMA crowd and observe the room. Observe everybody in there. You will be surprised how many people train going to UFC events, and it makes sense for you to go out and spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in order for you to watch a live fight. You must have a certain investment in a sport in some kind of way. Whether you want to be in the space as, let's say, a podcaster, a journalist, or perhaps maybe as somebody who is a competitor, or maybe somebody who is a manager, or somebody that is a public relations agent or some sort, or whatever it is that you do in the field of combat sports. All these guys train. I'm sorry to tell you, I don't mean to generalize, because I like to keep a certain integrity of, let's say, a real journalism, sort of say, right? Blase blah. That's what I'm trying to present for you. But honestly, in my most humble opinion, I honestly think that more MMA fans train than, let's say, the average NFL fan that just does nothing but wait and gets drunk every Sunday and probably gets drunk every day of the week and just makes an excuse for NFL Sunday to do so. Right after they came from church. So that's the reality and the hypocrisy of it all. But again, we also have to understand that as MMA becomes a lot more popular, what you're getting out of that is a much more toxic fan base. Now with Sean Strickland, I gotta tell you, with this guy, he's very popular. And look, again, this is not a kicks and punches particular content, this particular video at least. I've done content like that. I break down fights. Don't forget to like and subscribe, by the way, as I'm continuing on with this John Anik story that is hot right now in the MMA space. But yes, I do break down the fights. I not only break down events, I also break down boxing fights and also the psychology that goes into these MMA and UFC events, such as what state of mind is the fighter going through right now, what are some things going on in his life, what are his training environments, in order for us to understand how this person is going to perform in the night of their contest. These are some of the things that I can offer. But like I said, this particular content, it's not a kicks or punches type of thing, right? But going back to John Anik, as I was going on in a bit of a tirade in that, and then plugging the like and subscribe button to you guys, I think that Sean Strickland is a very popular fighter, right? And again, technically, this is why I went into that tirade about technical skills and breaking down technical aspects of the fight game, is because Sean Strickland is an analysis dream, and I'm going to explain why. Because the guy fights in a way that I think a lot of people can learn from, which I think many people are eventually going to emulate, such as the shoulder roll. The shoulder roll, by the way, is only perfect if you have a big enough shoulder, okay, wide shoulders like Floyd, and a small head portion in order for you to block every shot that comes your way when you are in a Philly shell, right? And in the simple shots that he does with just front kicks, right? He'll open with front kicks and jabs and use it to gauge his distance, I think is really genius. But again, for as popular as he gets, I don't think that his average fan base understands that. I don't think they understand the extent of his technical skills. And again, if you're a long-time mixed martial artist or a martial artist, lifelong or whatever length that you've trained at, and you're a Sean Strickland fan, I'm not talking to you. You know who I'm talking to, and if it applies, let it fly, as they say, right? Again, if it don't apply, let it fly, in other words. But if it does apply, then understand that the majority of Sean Strickland fans don't train. So why is it important for me to go on a tirade about all that just to explain to you why the majority of Sean Strickland's fans don't train? Well, as I've said in the beginning of the content, in order for MMA to be popular, you have to attract it by the thousands, and if not millions of people, which, by the way, hundreds of millions of people within that sample population, you're going to attract a lot of idiots. And because of that, well, the sport gets popular as a result. The more numbers, the more idiots that come in, that is the result that you get. I'm sorry to say, but Sean Strickland's personality, whether it be pleasant for you or unpleasant for you, really attracts a lot of people that are straight jackasses. And that is the most brutal honesty that I could give the MMA world. And I'm sorry that if you don't like that, but this is the reason why John Anik is saying what he's saying. At the same time, everybody has their own different bandwidth of things. And here's another thing that I really think is really important to emphasize with the John Anik situation, right? Everybody has this cocky attitude about themselves. Everyone, maybe even including myself and anyone that you probably met in your life. Their whole entire MO is that, oh, I can handle it, I can take it. Meaning that, what are you supposed to do? Take all this abuse that people throw at you in social media, online, and YouTube. And some people say, well, if you want to be in the limelight, guess what? This is what comes with the territory. You're 100% correct about that. The problem with that notion is that you also have to understand, you don't have to sit there and take it. For example, when Ian Gary took off the comments off of his YouTube channel because of the controversy that was going on with his wife. Okay, let's take that into consideration, right? You may like Ian Gary, you may not like Ian Gary. Me personally, I don't agree with a lot of his lifestyle choices. Maybe a lot of you do, maybe a lot of you don't. But the bottom line is, he had every right to turn off his comment section as so he pleases. He doesn't have to sit there and take all this abuse from you and somehow merit it to some, oh, I am the greatest tough guy ever because I'm allowing people to abuse me. Nobody on earth is designed to take all this criticism all at once. You see, we all live in a village of some sort around the world, right? Very similar to the country landscape that you see surrounding you right now, okay? Right out in West Sacramento, by the way, for you guys. And if you've made it this far in the video, then obviously that is your bonus treat right there, is showing you a bit of some country landscape. So with that in mind, what I'm trying to explain to you guys is that the world is a village. You see, social media is around. Not only that, we have contact with many people around the world, and as wonderful as it is, my goodness, I would have never expected to have a YouTube channel where people in South Africa watch me, people in Nigeria watch me, people in Scotland, Ireland, Kazakhstan. What else were the other countries in there? Canada, obviously, the UK, America, Canada, Mexico was there at some point, especially during the Canelo fights. But this is a worldwide reach, and I'm sure, yeah, obviously, people with bigger channels have even bigger reaches than that. But even with social media, even if you have 30 friends or 5,000 friends on your Facebook, you're going to be connected to a lot of people around the world. And this has never happened before. So now you're interacting with thousands, if not millions of people throwing their opinions at you. It's almost unnatural. It's almost like we're not designed for it. What we were designed for was to live in our own village with our own tribe, not necessarily just having to stick with your own tribe, but within that particular regional circumference, okay? And you have these people that are your support system. Like anywhere in society, you have people that are your first responders, people that are your medical team, people that are your security and your protection of some sort. This is what functions society to a certain extent, okay? But these are the people that can help you within your own small village. This is what humans are designed for. We were not designed to interact with this many people. So what I'm trying to say with that is you are allowed to protect your own bandwidth. You guys ever been to a party that you were dragged to and you're, I don't want to be here, or some sort of event or function that you didn't want to be in? I'm sure you have. And the reason why you felt that way is because of a bandwidth that you feel that, man, I'm just not feeling like being out here right now. Now, of course, you're going to have days you're like, yeah, let's go out. Let's go to the restaurants. Let's go to the boulevard. Let's go drive around. Let's go work out. Let's go to the beach and all that, right? You're going to have days where you feel like that because your bandwidth is very high. But guess what? There's just some days where your bandwidth is low, and I think you are allowed to protect that at any cost. And that right there is the moral of the Jon Anik story that a lot of people don't want to take into consideration. So please keep me in your considerations. Help grow the channel, like and subscribe, and I'll be dropping some more.